All right, we're ready to rock today.
Oh, wait.
Okay. Okay, so this is what I love. This is the intro. This is the intro.
This is raw and live.
There's
Raw and
no
live.
guests previously that have recorded me like that. I'm pretty happy with
Really?
that. No one.
Oh,
You know what? But they do come in when these lights come on. They're a bit shocked. But anyway, I was lucky enough to spend time with you guys last week. Got to know you guys really, really well. We went out. We spent time. We ate together. We had laughs. I interviewed you for 30 minutes, Sharndré. But in this podcast today, I just want each of you to tell the viewers what you do. You've got unbelievable credentials, but I'm going to start with you, Sharndré. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you've been able to achieve in a short amount of time, because there's a fair thing areas that I'm going to go into. After the last video, people have watched. They've asked me a lot of questions, and I think these questions I didn't know the answers to.
okay.
So I'm very excited to get into this. And I think this, no, I know. Sorry,
better.
Clay, sorry.
Much better language.
I know this, that the takeaways people are going to get from watching this podcast today is going to be unbelievable. They're going to learn the processes, the patience required for any individual to succeed in any field, right? But Sharndré, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you've got a huge resume. I don't care how long you go for because it's all exciting.
Okay. I'll go wind the clock back, and I'll start at, I guess when we last spoke, I told you a bit about my upbringing and, my family background and all of that. I end up, my family immigrated to New Zealand, and I did all of my schooling there. And kind of going through school, I thought, I'm going to become a doctor, and that's how I'm going to make my impact on the world. And honestly, I feel like you never know what's around the corner, because when I was in my first year at university, I was doing pre-med, and the whole pathway for my life changed when I started my first company, because I didn't end up becoming a doctor. I ended up stumbling into business, and I guess that's really where my career started. So I was 18 years old. It was 2013, and at the time I was tutoring for my part-time job. So I was at university full-time, and I was tutoring 6 kids in English and maths. And they were all asking me what they should do when they leave school. They were saying things like, what should I study? What should I be? My mum said I should be a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer, because that's what all the smart kids do. Should I go to, the local university here in Auckland, or should I go somewhere else? And I just actually at the start, gave them really the same answers that other people gave me. I said, smart kids do engineering, law, or medicine, and you should go to Auckland University like I was doing. And then my whole world changed, and my answers to those questions changed too when I met 5 kids who were my age, and they had been admitted to the best universities in the world. So these kids were going to schools like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Oxford, Cambridge, or they'd been admitted to those schools. And when I met them, my mind was blown. I was like, wow, I only ever hear about these schools on TV or in movies. How did you do that? And also, doesn't it cost $1 million a year to go to one of these universities? And what I learned was that they'd all planned to do this for a long time. They just had a lot of structure and strategy around how they would get in. And most of them were going to these universities, and, one of them was going to Harvard and paying less than I was paying to go to the University of Auckland. And so I was amazed. I was like, wow, if you can do it, then I could have done it too if I had known 3 or 4 years ago. And maybe the kids that I'm tutoring can do it too. So that's really where my business, Crimson Education, started. And over a period of a decade now, because Crimson it's 2024. In June this year, the business will be 11 years old. But over that time period, we've worked with thousands of students now across over 30 countries to figure out what they want to do next, where they want to go to university, what they want to study, what career pathways they want to go into, and I guess most importantly, what they're really passionate about. And so for that part of my career, when I was building the business, every day was about, waking up, showing up, and really being super committed to helping every single student achieve their potential. And that's what made me feel really motivated. Instead of becoming a doctor and creating impact through helping people in a hospital, I was so motivated to create impact by changing the course of someone's life, by helping them find a career pathway that they were passionate about, helping them, learn from the best people in the world. And so that was kind of my world for about 8 years. And then after I left Crimson, which was 2 years ago, just kind of during COVID, I decided that I wanted to learn a lot more about different industries and verticals, and also wanted to give back more. And so I started my foundation called the 1 Billion. Our goal with the foundation is to improve 1 billion lives before 2050. And I kind of saw the intersection of like philanthropy and giving back and business. And so I started investing more in companies that were really progressive and like very socially focused, but also like for-profit businesses. And yeah, now I think, every day is very exciting because we have the opportunity to kind of do some of the exciting stuff that, we're working on at the moment with helping to support and build companies that can help change the world. So yeah, that's kind of my background in a nutshell.
Wow. So you go to study medicine, and then you feel like you're tutoring and you see a gap, and then you decide to start Crimson. Who'd you get help from? Was it just something you just started? Who was sort of like giving you the confidence to go for it at that point?
It's actually really interesting because neither of my parents are in business. Both of them work in healthcare. So my mum is a speech therapist, and my dad has worked in public health for my whole life. And so when I got home from school every day, like we'd always sit down around the dinner table and we'd talk about like, what whether there was like a water crisis in Auckland, or like if there was like a measles outbreak or something like that, or my mum's work with her patients. But we never really sat around the table and talked about business because that wasn't really like the influence that, I had around me. And so when I started Crimson, it was a real surprise, I think, to both of my parents. And I think that what it really forced me to do when I was learning about, actually setting up a business and taking those steps towards growing it, it really taught me that like business is just problem solving, right? Like there are so many ways to solve problems, and it's great to have like mentors and people around you who can help you to learn. But I think the most important thing is having the right mindset, because I think being resourceful is really important. I think being able to just be logical is really important. And if you've done things for a long time in business, sometimes you lose that. You lose the ability to be creative with problem solving. And so one of the things I'm most grateful for is being 18 when I started my company and being so naive, because it kind of forced me to find new and innovative ways to solve problems every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to get back to you, but Clay, we've had you on a couple of times. This is the one, bro.
What's so funny?
They were funny. Both episodes were great, to be perfectly honest. But you've done so much. You're 31 soon.
Soon, yeah.
Soon, Valentine's Day, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Little lover boy.
That's it. So tell us a little bit about yourself, because I want you to do that. And then how did you two meet? I want to know that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I always grew up playing sport, so that was always my dream when I was younger. I loved to play soccer. So I went overseas and traveled, but I was quite good at school as well. I was quite good at everything when I was young, to be honest. Like I kind of was someone that was very curious and very competitive. So a lot of the things that I touched, I'd kind of want to figure out how to do well at them. It didn't work out at that age playing soccer overseas, and I decided to come back and do my HSC because I was academic and I wanted to do well at that. Went to uni to study law and media. I was never really interested in being a lawyer, but I had the opportunity to do it, and I thought it'd teach me some good skills. And then I met a mutual friend of ours, Izza, who's the founder of EHP Labs. So I was kind of traveling around playing soccer at that stage, and I thought, well, I better start this whole career thing. I went there as an intern. I walked in, they were like a social media company at the time. I walked in with my suit to kind of my first office job in my interview. And I was lucky enough to get the internship. Izza was overseas at the time, and he got back, and kind of 2 weeks into that internship, he was like, cool, I see a lot of you in myself, and kind of come under my wing and let's build this thing. This is my vision. Here's what I'd like you to help on. Here's the things that I can teach you. Don't worry about anything that you've learned in the past. This is a fresh slate. Let's just kind of go all in. And I really valued that. I was really at a point in my life that I was ready to fully commit myself to learning. And at that time in my career, I didn't have any other resource. I had no experience. I had no money. I had nothing but effort. So that's the resource that I leveraged. So being fresh into the company, which was still kind of just starting, to be honest, I was always like spending a lot of time in the office. I wanted to make sure I was the first person there. I was the last person to leave. I would take on as much work as I could. I would go to the office on public holidays. Like that was very much my mentality at that stage. And those kind of 5 years that I was there with, especially working super closely with him, were super formative years. We kind of built that company from a handful of employees to a global operation. It was very much on the cusp of when social media, digital advertising, and influencer marketing was just kind of starting. So I had the opportunity to have a really big impact at a fast scaling company like that. And a lot of those lessons that I learned through those first years are things that I went and applied throughout my career. I parted ways with them after 5 years and went into a new startup, which was a health and fitness technology. We then branded that, built a new brand off the side of that crop shop boutique, and then also went into Muscle Republic. So it was kind of 4 health and fitness startup scale up brands that I was a part of, but each of them was like hyper focused on the same mission, which was kind of empowering that online community to become their best. That was the mission with the supplements. It was the mission with the transformative app that we built, the clothes that we sold. We wanted girls to feel amazing, and we wanted guys and girls to feel amazing at Muscle Republic. And I spent a lot of time really understanding that customer, who's probably a customer that's similar to yours now in the gym. You know, people that are super interested in growth and self-development and feeling more confident in taking on more responsibility and building amazing lives. And I got a lot out of learning how to drive those online communities and add values to those journeys, both like through the product and the transactional experience, but also just through adding like a lot of value without asking for anything in return, which I think is a super important part of business, is being able to kind of over deliver on that value aspect. I'd only ever been in one business at a time. So I kind of did my journey at EHP, and then we went and built Bodies by Rachel and rebranded that into Move With Us. And then I moved back to Sydney and went on the journey with probably one of my favorite people in the world, Vic, who was on the podcast last week, and his story is just so incredible. I loved working with him and loved spending time with him. But I always felt that, you know, working with these founders of these companies, that my impact could be a little bit broader than just scaling their business with them. So I actually met with Sean when I was thinking about what was next for me last year, as someone who had built such an incredible business and then moved into kind of working on various projects at the same time. And we spoke about a few different things. And then, yeah, quite suddenly, maybe a month ago now, she called me and she was like, "Hey, Clay, do you want to go to America next week? Let's go over for 2 weeks and let's go and explore some new things and see how much we can get done." And she was like, "Look, we can stay in Sydney and maybe catch up once a month and talk about these things, or we can just go and get a place and stay together for 2 weeks and make all of that progress in a 2-week period." And that's kind of exactly what we did. So we put a little bit of a plan together about what we're both interested in building. And I think there was a lot of synergy there, because as people, we have kind of very similar values and morals in terms of like empowerment and encouraging other people to kind of do and be more and to help as many people as we can, which is what we've kind of both done in different ways in our careers so far. And hopefully it's reciprocated, but it's been quite fun working with her so far.
It's been all right.
Well, mate, I was in that room with you guys last week, and it was intense. Like, you know, it was like it was a game for 80 minutes, and it kept going into extra time. And that's what it felt like. The energy was like, man, how many extra times are these guys going to have? I think in basketball, the record's 3 or 4 extra times. So you guys just kept going into extra time. But it showed, you know, the energy that you guys have. You know, at one point it looked like you were down and she was pulling you up, and then Sharndré was down and you were pulling her up. You know, but one thing I know about you as well, like I've known you for a while, and you know you've helped a lot of people through their journey and their business, and you've always worked for one company, but you've also helped companies while you're working for that one company. Like anytime someone asks you for help, you'd always be helping them out. So to me, it feels like what suits you the most. You like working on a few projects at the same time, because you understand that this is the way, you know, business is built. These are the frameworks, these are the principles, and you can't really remove yourself from those frameworks and principles. So they relate to almost every business. The question I want to ask you is, do you guys look for the energy of the founder to see if the founder fits right with what you guys are trying to execute on?
Yeah, I think for sure, like regardless of how you look at it, the founder's always going to be the heartbeat of the business. So empowering that founder and getting them to unlock that potential is going to pay huge dividends for like every single moving part of a business. And if that founder's not operating at the level that they can be, it's really hard to grow a separate business without that piece being kind of done correctly. And I'm sure you could relate to that yourself.
Oh, it's hard. Like you, as a founder, you like for me, you have to outsource certain things, and they have to be able to look at the blind spots that you can't see at times, and you need good people to be around to be able to help facilitate those blind spots, so you could become better at what you need to become better at. What I want to ask, like my daughter, when I got back from the Gold Coast, she asked me the question like, how did you start? And we talked about that, but I think what she wanted to know most about was what were the challenges. Like when I interviewed Vic, right? He had so many points of where, you know, you'd probably quit if you were Vic. You know, the amount of times he was down to almost nothing. Like it was easy for him to throw in the towel. And a lot of people resonated with that story because I resonated with that story because the first, 14 years prior to owning this business, I felt the same as well. Obviously, you were able to build a huge business with Crimson. Did you have at points where you thought, geez, have I gone in a bit over my depth here?
I think that any person who starts a business who says that they haven't felt like that is lying.
Yeah.
Because starting anything from nothing and like going on this journey of actually creating something and turning it into something is really, really difficult. Like, it is so hard to, number one, I think a lot of people struggle with like articulating their vision. So, knowing what you want to build and being able to share that with other people, I think can be really challenging. And then the other part that's hard is actually like, as a founder, knowing that every day you wake up, you're working towards something that's like really meaningful to you, but also there's so many challenges that come your way every day. So like, when push comes to shove, you are the person that has to solve those challenges, right? And so I think that's hard. Like, being a founder is not like having any other role. Like I think for lots of people, if you work a 9-to-5 job, you know exactly what your job every day is going to entail. You know what you're going to be doing. You know what the tasks are. You know what you need to complete. When you're a founder, yes, those things are there. Like, in your mind what you want to tick off, but you also have to deal with all the other shit that like no one else can deal with. Or like, if say there's a huge opportunity, like the only person who actually fully will realize what the opportunity is you. And so I think like one of the challenges and one of the also the greatest opportunities that come with being a founder is like being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and like knowing that when you're in an environment where like, it might feel like you're drowning, actually like learning how to swim and like getting out of that like drowning situation, maybe like getting to shore, is what will teach you the most. And for me, like that's where the rush of entrepreneurship actually comes from. Like, I love the feeling of being out of my depth, and I love the feeling of knowing that if I just push a little bit harder, I'll probably learn something that I didn't know before, or like solve a problem that I couldn't have solved before. And that's why I keep doing it. Like, when I left Crimson, I could have stopped and like, retired on a beach and just said, this is it for me. I'm retiring at 26 or 27. But I kind of have never really given up or wanted to give up that urge of like continuing to learn, because I just think that like entrepreneurship is the best way to do something that's like really meaningful, and that comes from like doing things that are different, and it comes from being uncomfortable and like getting through that discomfort, and then like learning and becoming comfortable, and then finding a new situation to be uncomfortable in.
Well, that's a great answer, but what I want to know, like, is every entrepreneur like that? I'm going to ask you this question, Clay. Do you look at some people going, mate, this guy's just not going to make it? Like, be honest. Like, I sometimes look at... You know what's funny? I look at people and I go, I was hopeless. I believe everyone can make it, right? I wasn't the best, right? And I understood that about me. So I believe in people probably more than they believe in themselves. So when people come to me, I actually believe in them because I wasn't the best, right? But I was able to push through that and learn and educate myself and keep learning by putting in the work. But surely, right? Like sometimes you see people go, he's actually not going to make it, or she's not going to make it. Do you see that?
I think you kind of answered it. Like, I think there are people at stages that aren't ready, but if they're coachable and they seek the right resources and they're honest with themselves, they can get themselves to a point where they are ready. But I think it's important as a founder, like super important, to remove your ego and to be a founder that can be coachable just the same way that you want your team to be coachable. And like, for sure, there's people that I've met, that you've met, that maybe aren't performing at a level that places them as the best possible person at that time for that business. Not to say that they can't get there, but I think it's like any other trait. Like you need to understand what success looks like and be honest with yourself about if you're performing at the level that warrants that. And if you're not, then you need to be open to taking steps to become the version of yourself that is that person.
Yeah. Because, yeah, you're going to say something?
I was just going to say that I think that it is possible for every person to be able to make it. But I think that for many people, they, like, being able to have the resilience that's required to actually make it that's where lots of people fail. Like, one of the things that I always remind myself of is that the quickest way to failure is to stop. And so, like, when you feel like you have to stop, most people, I think, do stop because it's too hard. But by stopping, you're actually just, like, accepting the fact that you can't go anywhere. So I think that, like, most people could keep going. I think actually everyone could keep going.
Yeah.
And, like, after enough tries, they probably get to where they want to go. But I don't think I don't think most people give themselves the opportunity to get there.
It's funny because when I was interviewing Vic, I watched the Sylvester Stallone documentary on Netflix, and he said it was actually a great documentary. He said he got there the hard way, and there was no other way for him to get there, but he got there. So for some people, do you believe, like, you got success really early, like if that's not going to happen for everyone, right? Right. It depends on what age you start at, I guess. It depends. Like if you start at a young age. But the question I want to ask you is this. You know, if you look at the graph of an entrepreneur, it's up and down, right? It's up and down. But what's the key ingredient that's necessary? Like, what was the biggest thing that you focused on to get you there? Like, was it sacrifice? Did you go, hey, I'm going to have a 10-year block here where I'm shutting everything down. I'm just going to focus on this vertical right here and just be, laser focused?
That's a hard question because I think for me, I always was just so in love with the journey. Like, there were days where, I would work, maybe I'd probably sleep 6 hours or 5 hours a day. The rest of the day, I'd literally just be working. And I would do that day after day after day. And I was really happy with that lifestyle because I knew that what I was doing was worthy of me giving up whatever I was giving up. So it never really felt like a sacrifice. But I think that, like, when you're building something and when you know exactly what your vision is, you know what you're trying to create, being really focused is so powerful. And so for that period of time, like, there was a period of probably, 8 or 9 years in my life where most of my friends were going out on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and they're going to bars and they were partying, and they were planning, like, huge birthday celebrations and going on holidays and stuff like that. And for me, like, that just didn't even exist in my world. Like, I'd never felt like I was sacrificing anything because I was so focused on what I was doing that I didn't even realize that, like, other stuff was going on. And so I think being able to understand that, like, building something does require a lot of focus. It requires a lot of commitment. And in most businesses, a lot of, I think, sacrifice of things that maybe at other phases in your life you wouldn't want to sacrifice is important. So, like, being on that journey at the right time, I think, is really critical. Because otherwise, like, it could feel like you're being pulled in so many different directions. And I think for a lot of people, if it's at the wrong time, when that happens, you could probably feel like it's really hard.
What have been some of the challenges for you, Clay? Like, you've worked for a few companies. Like, you would have seen different challenges, different founders, different CEOs. What were some of the biggest lessons that you've learned?
I don't know if it was maybe naivety at the start, but I think I got into this, like, fairly young. Like, I got into, like, more, like, seriously committing to a company when I was, like, 21, which maybe you're the youngest, but a little bit after you. But I had this mindset the whole way through that, like, it didn't matter what happened, we were just going to figure it out. So when things got hard, like, there was no part of my brain that was like, oh, I'd rather be doing something else, or maybe this isn't going to work. And I've worked with founders that, like, maybe didn't have that same like, mindset as me, where when it got hard, it's like, oh, this is too hard, like, it's not going to work, we need to stop, we need to go do something else. But my brain could never really process that. Every company that I've been in, it's like, we're going to make this, we're going to get to this goal that we've set no matter what. And, like, whatever obstacle kind of stands in the way, it's fine, let's understand it and workshop it and, like, go around it. There was never any kind of thought that entered my mind over, like, this is maybe not possible or we can't do this. I think a lot of that actually came from Iz at EHP Labs. Like, he was very strong-minded about, I know what I'm building and whatever comes in our way, we're going to overcome it. I think that's quite powerful. Like, on that, progress is never linear. Like, there's always ups and downs, but as long as, like, the net result is positive, I think the most constant thing that you need is effort. And I think Vic's a great example of that too in his business, that like there are like the obstacles are real, like it is difficult to build a business, but if your effort remains constant and you just believe in showing up every single day and taking steps in the right direction to overcome those things, you actually can do it. Like, and those things will compound over time, and it might not be till year 8 that you start to see those exponential results that you wanted in year 1. But if you see through that period and like stick at it, you will overcome the things that kind of try to stop you. But a lot of people never get to that point, because I think the perception of getting into business at the start is that it's fun and it's sexy and it's you have this lifestyle and you have access to these resources. But that's often quite different once you get your head into the game. So I think effort is like super important. There's challenges everywhere, like trying to build, especially like fast scale businesses. You know, if you don't control that growth, things will like break quite quickly. So you need to be ready to solve problems on the fly, and you need to you need to be a problem solver, and you need to be able to lead people, not to become overwhelmed when things do go wrong, because it's the nature of building something that agile and that fast is that like things will break, but we're going to respond really quickly and overcome whatever does go wrong. So I think a lot of it is a mindset, and if you can lead a team to adapt that same mindset to like whatever happens, we're going to fix it because we're so committed, we so believe in what we're building. Whatever goes wrong, it doesn't matter, we can fix it. I think that's like kind of relevant everywhere. Like if you look back at all of the times of your life when you thought things were just irreparable, the world's on fire, like you always get through it. Like every single time we've felt like that, we've always come out of it. So I think you can get some solace from that mindset of, okay, let me understand where we're at. Maybe option A didn't work, maybe option B doesn't work, but I'm going to workshop C and D, and we're going to find a way to go through it. So that definitely helps, I think.
You've kind of been good at that. I've seen you in a lot of situations, probably when I'm a little bit stressed out. You're very good at going, don't worry, it's going to get fixed. You've always had that level-headedness about you. But what I want to ask you, Sharndré, is obviously when you've got to where you've got to at such a young age, one of the biggest awards, I'm sure there's probably more, but top 30, under 30, Asia Pacific entrepreneur of, you know, in the top 30. Was it the World Economic Forum one? Forbes. When you get that award, what does that make you feel like? Because it could get to a lot of people's head, right?
I'm sure it could get to some people's head, but I think, you know, at that moment in time in my life, I was 23 years old, and like my world was just like so focused on my business, and like it was absolutely crazy, like in the best ways possible. But you know, we were growing really fast. I think our head count in that year went from like 50 people to like 250 people, and we opened up like 15 new offices in a 12-month period. And so I was on airplanes all the time, and like there was just a lot going on. And so I always feel like with awards and with recognition, it's like so important to take a step back and like appreciate how far you've come. But really with that like award and that recognition, it didn't really feel like something that was just mine. Like it was like something that was a massive team effort. Like our whole company, like everyone woke up every day and was obsessed with making sure that these students achieved what they did. And we had like an amazing, you know, group of people who were on this journey with us for you know, 5 years at that point in time. And so I think like for me, two things that I now look back and I think really kept me very grounded during that period was, number one, I've always been very focused on impact as opposed to like money or like, you know, awards or titles and stuff like that. And so knowing that like I woke up in the morning and like all the effort I was putting in was helping like more students to be successful and like changing the way that people thought that they could achieve, like that for me I would have never traded that mindset for anything, not even like $1 million or $10 million or $100 million or $1 billion, and I still wouldn't now. So that was probably one thing. And the second thing that kept me really grounded was being really connected to the people around me. So like, you know, my family have always been a really big influence on my life, as we talked about last time, but also like our team at Crimson. And so there never would have been a day where like I could have gone into our office and like sat down at my desk and felt like, wow, like I'm Forbes 30 under 30 and this is like my thing. Like I would have, you know, walked in every single day and been like, wow, guys, look what we've achieved. Like we did this together. So
it was more about team than me. It was we.
Well, I mean, honestly, like I could never hand on heart say that any award that I've been given in my life was just about me. Like maybe I was the person whose name was being recognized, but like to be able to get to a stage where I was able to be recognized for that is actually like recognition to everyone who was kind of on that journey. And I think like for me, leadership has always been a really big part of my world. And I think that that's probably the greatest lesson that I've learned along the way, that like any leader, any person who's like leading a team or like trying to take others on a journey, you really have to recognize that it's not like you might be the person at the front, but they're like the people behind you are actually allowing you to be at the front, because if they weren't there, you'd just be standing, you know, in the middle of a field alone.
That's right.
So yeah, it's quite interesting.
When you look at the journey that you both have been on, obviously with you, Clay, moving from company to company, it seems like you're very excited about this journey. Like you went to the States, you've met some great companies and great people over there. What were some of the takeaways like of that journey of the 2 weeks that you guys spent there? Like, what were the key? You don't have to explain all of it, but what were the key takeaways?
I'm actually excited to hear answers for this.
So you want the real story?
Well, look, I'll just tell you. You said, "Man, fuck, Mets was unbelievable." What was it? Because I'm gonna ask you
honestly,
too,
like
Sharndré.
I think something that like for me has been great about working with Sean over the last little period is to like truly challenge me to think bigger. Pre-America, I was scoping some new projects that I wanted to work on that I probably would have done regardless and launched locally and would have been like super exciting. But especially at this phase of my life, like why not really go for it and see what I'm capable of? Like something that we probably said every day, doing all of these crazy things we're doing that weren't like super planned, was like, what's the worst that could happen? You know, what if you really did push the envelope and go and build the biggest, most impactful thing that you could build? Like what's the worst that could happen on that journey? And often like the worst case scenario really isn't that bad. So it was quite fun for us to be over there, like traveling around, meeting a lot of these people, and challenging ourselves to think, well, like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, what if this thing that we're planning, who more capable than us? Like, why can't we do it? You know, if I believe in your potential, you believe in your potential, I believe in mine, you believe in mine. If we can team up and take, you know, all of these great people that we've built relationships with throughout our careers and all of these leadership skills and all of these things that we really love, and what we truly think is our why as like humans, and we can build this venture that like combines all of those things into something that's like so authentic and so amazing, who's to say we can't do it? So for me, it was a big kind of paradigm shift from staying local with like the businesses that I was doing and like trying to just do things in Australia, or even more like just really build things out from Sydney, to there's a whole world out there and there's so much impact that we can have. And I believe I can do it. So why not kind of get on the ground? We're going to go back and spend a few months over there to continue kind of exploring these projects that we're building at the moment. But yeah, those two things were like think bigger and like what's the worst that can happen. They're quite linked, but they're probably the two biggest ones for me.
I mean, some of the names that
That's so great.
you rattled off.
I'm glad.
Did you like that?
Yeah, I like that.
Well, let me ask you a question. You told him to get on a plane, going, you know, if you want to make it happen, you got to get on the plane. It's up to you. You got to start thinking bigger. What are you thinking at the time when you're saying it? Do you think at that point, do you go, have I sold it to him? Is he going to come? What's he going to be like? What was going through your mind?
Well, anyone who knows me knows that I'm like very adventurous and like kind of spontaneous, but also I never say no to a great opportunity. And so the way that this kind of panned out for us was quite interesting, because I was actually flying back to Australia, and I stopped in the US for a day. That was just like on my way home. And when I was in the US, there, without kind of sharing too much, there were a series of things that happened while I was in the US that made me realize all of the conversations that we'd been having for probably like 6 months before that, like that one day, the universe was saying like, if you guys don't do this now, then like someone else is going to do it. And so I'd never had an experience like that before, where like, you could just design, like if you had to design like a sign to say like, you should fucking do it now. That was literally like, everything happened in one day. And so I remember I was like, you know, meant to be on my way back to Sydney. I was in the Uber to the airport, and in my mind I like kept thinking about it, and I was like, okay, like this happened. And I'm like why haven't we actioned anything? And so I called Clay, and when I talked to him on the phone, I was like, look, like these are all the things that have happened. This is like literally exactly what we've been talking about for the last 6 months. Like we have to do something about it. And I was actually so surprised, because like I was literally thinking out loud. Like as I was talking to him, I was like, we should do this and we should do this, and we should meet this person in LA, or we should, you know, go here and we should talk to this person. And like when he said, "Oh, great, let's do it," I was like kind of surprised. I was like, "Wow, okay, let's do it." And then he was like, and then I asked him, I was like, when should we do this? He was like, "We should do it straight away." And I was like, "Great, we should do it straight away," you know? And then I was like, "Specifically, when should we do it?" And he was like, "How about the middle of January?" And I was like, "Well, that's next week. So, you know, sure, we can make it happen next week." And so I came back home, and like a week later we were on a plane. So I think like sometimes in life, you know, stuff happens and you can choose to, you know, continue with the plan that you had and like have a very predictable life, or you can choose to take a risk and you can choose to do what Clay said, which is like, you know, follow the opportunity and what's the worst that can happen. And like truly like figure out where, you know, where opportunities are. And I think that's like the beauty in like, you know, being able to make decisions and realize that like the path of your life can change in like an instant, and that's all down to you and the decisions that you make.
So when you're over there, all the visions that you had over the last 6 months, if you were rated out of 10 being the best score, what would you have rated that? Like, because obviously you would have seen all this in your mind, right? Because you must be great at being able to set goals, have a vision, and make things come to life, right?
Yeah, like I think, you know, in the 6 months prior to us kind of having that chat, it was kind of like us being able to, like any entrepreneur would think about what's a problem I'm solving, right? And like, what's a potential solution? How do I solve that problem? And we've been talking about this problem for like 6 months, and then we've been talking about a potential solution. And so like in my mind, I don't know if I, honestly, like I don't think I had like a true vision of like how everything would come together, because I feel like that's something that, you know, takes a little bit of time when you're actually like planning out what you want to do in your business. But I definitely really understood the problem we were trying to solve. And when I was in San Francisco for that one day before we spoke on the phone, the problem was like literally right in front of me. And like, you know, a couple people who are very influential were saying that this is a problem, and they were saying no one's here to solve it. And so if I had walked away, if I'd, you know, packed up my suitcase, gone back to Sydney and said like, "Oh, that's interesting, like I'm going to just go about what I planned to do," then that problem would still be there, but someone else would probably have come in and tried to solve it. And I mean, like, I really back my ability to work hard and problem solve and like create amazing things. And I think that like between myself and Clay, we probably can create something that's like very meaningful. So I'd hate for someone else to come in and do something that's like less than what we could have done if we did a really good job, you know, together on it.
And did you feel like if you didn't go, you were going to miss out on a huge opportunity?
Kind of.
What was going through your mind?
Like I spent a fair bit of time because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. So like I finished up at Muscle Republic end of last year, and I spent the holidays doing like a whole bunch of reflection and a whole lot of planning, which I talk about with you because I know you're interested in it. But I kind of dissected my life, and I was like, wow, like I've had like a really great life so far, super enjoyable, but I've been like quite good at being a really high performer at conventional things. So I was like quite good at sport, and I was really good at school. I did well at uni. I went into business and I did well. But then I was like, if I look at my potential, I want to build something that's like unconventional, like that changes the world, because I think I'm able to do that. But through being like better than the norm at a lot of these things, I learned to like kind of seek gratification from just being better than the norm. But that was not at all conducive with what I wanted to build. And if I looked at like the track record of what I've done, it's great. And like, it's super, like I've got an amazing life and I'm really happy, but it's still so far from like the impact that I want to have. So I started thinking, wow, this year I'm going to need to do something that is like quite unconventional to align with like the unconventional scale of impact that I want to have. So I got this big vision board at my house, and like in the middle of it, I wrote "Take the Leap." Like this was the year that I really wanted to align my actions with what I really thought my potential was, which would be uncomfortable for me. Because I don't need to do those things. So I had no idea at that time when I did this planning and I wrote that sign on my wall what that opportunity would be. But I really started like looking at it every day and believing it. Like, this is the year I'm going to do something unconventional, that I'm going to take the leap. I'm going to say yes to the opportunities that, 3 months ago, if this opportunity came up, I probably would have said no, because I would have had an obligation to be in an office and be managing a team. And like, even though this is something I'm like super closely aligned with and passionate about, I probably would have stayed in like the confines of my like successful routine that I had built that I enjoyed. So when that opportunity did come up and I did that planning, like it was one phone call, maybe on the phone for like 15 or 20 minutes. Like there was no part of my brain that like needed to consider beyond that point. It was like, is this aligned with what I think, my purpose and my vision and my potential is? Yes. Have we explored this? Do I believe in this problem that we want to solve as well? Absolutely. Let's just go and do it. Like there was no time for second thought.
So we haven't talked about what it is. So what's going to happen? What's gonna
Podcast
happen?
number 3.
No, but like, nah, you gotta give a snippet. I'm gonna fucking walk out of here. People are gonna watch this or listen or what, and they go, "Mate, what is it, Mets? Like, what's a snippet? Like, if you could give like 5%, like 5%, like what is it? Is it?
I don't want to.
Is it making a brand better? Yeah, I know, but is it?
Um,
Let me ask you a quick. Okay, let's make it simple. Is it like just making brands bigger?
We believe that there's an opportunity to like build brands in kind of a different way to what they've
Yeah.
been built before.
Yeah.
Like very purpose-built companies,
Yeah.
things that we believe make the world a better place and that solve problems in innovative ways. And we also believe there's an opportunity to support businesses in a way that we haven't really seen done before. So we're really focused on creating something that can, create these brands that are our brands, that are things that we want to create and like share with the world at scale, which is quite fun, but also to support kind of existing businesses that we believe can really benefit from that support to have that ecosystem where they can thrive.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's sharing not enough or too much. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I think you did a really good job. Well done.
Very diplomatic. But last week I don't know if I could say this, but we picked you up from a house. You were doing a workshop there.
Yes.
Can we talk about that? Or
We can.
You can, yeah. So Culture King, Simon Beard, you're working with him. One Life Club. We picked you up from there. Was that your first one? Was it the first workshop you've done for the...
Yeah, so I am one of the co-owners in a company called One Life Club. And One Life Club is essentially like a platform and a community for entrepreneurs. So if you're a business owner and you want to be surrounded by other people who are going through like the similar challenges and like trying to, I guess, have a sounding board and learn the skills. One Life Club is like the community that you'd go to. And so last week we had this really, really amazing day. And it was basically bringing our community together. So we recently launched this new community program for One Life Club. And last week we had 24 people who all had and have amazing businesses in a range of different areas. We all got together in the Gold Coast, and the first half of the day was amazing, focused on health and wellness. So it was my first time doing cryotherapy. So I got in this like freezing cold like chamber that was like negative 77 degrees, and I stood in there for like 3 minutes, which was crazy. And then after that, we did a sauna and an ice bath, and then we did this crazy workout. And it was just so amazing to see these high-performing people who are so ambitious with their businesses also focusing on themselves. So we did that for half the day, and the second half of the day was all about setting ourselves up for the year. So like identifying what our goals are, being able to really like articulate what we're chasing, but also how we're keeping ourselves accountable. And then like using the room of like, 24 amazing entrepreneurs to be able to talk about what our biggest opportunities are and like what our biggest challenges are too. And so I felt like walked away from that and I felt so inspired. You guys came and picked me up after that, and we talked a little bit more about Crimson and my journey. But that type of stuff, like talking to entrepreneurs, learning from their journey, learning from their lessons, that's like what makes me super excited and gives me lots of energy. So it was really fun.
How do you work with Simon Beard? I mean, he's done amazing things with Culture King. How did that relationship start?
So One Life Club is a venture between myself, Simon, and an amazing entrepreneur who actually created this whole concept of One Life Club called Emil Dresic. He's based in Brisbane, and Emil has a real estate company called NGU Real Estate, which is one of the biggest in Queensland. They do like $2 billion in real estate transactions a year, and he has like $100 million in property development projects a year. So amazing entrepreneur, and he's done a lot of this with his wife. And so funny story about how we met, because we met first, and then Simon and I and Emil kind of joined forces. But I was this was probably about a year and a bit ago. I was on a plane from Brisbane to Sydney, and normally when I'm on an airplane, I'm the most antisocial person. So like I just want to sleep, like get on the plane, go to sleep, wake up and get off the plane. Like I literally will sit there. I won't even like eat any food. I don't like, drink the nice champagne or like ask for anything fancy. I just like sit there and do my thing. Anyway, on this flight, I sat down, and for the first time probably in my whole life, I started talking to the person next to me. And the person next to me was this amazing woman called Giselle. And this is kind of a funny part of the story, but I'd recently bought my first Ferrari. So she saw me looking at a photo of my new car, and she was like, oh, wow, that's a nice car. I was like, yeah, I just got it. She's like, oh my gosh, you bought yourself a Ferrari? And I was like, yeah, like I told her a bit about my car and why I was excited. And so we started talking, and Emil was sitting behind us, and he'd just bought a new Lamborghini, and they were picking it up like the next day. And so we started talking about cars, which was kind of funny. But that's how I met her and her husband. And so we became friends. And a few months later, Emil reached out to me saying, hey, Shan, I'd love to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing with One Life Club, which I was kind of across because they told me about it. And so I hopped on a call with him, and Simon was on the call too. And they both said to me, look, like, we've decided to do this together. And Simon had, recently left Culture Kings and had a very successful exit of that business that him and his wife Tani had built. And they were both just so focused on like doing something next that could help share their lessons and, help other entrepreneurs to thrive. And that was very up my alley. So, it's been an amazing kind of joint effort between us and our team to be able to kind of take One Life Club and the amazing lessons that people have learned to entrepreneurs all around Australia. So, it's a really exciting time. I think like there's so much knowledge to be shared. And like One Life is such an amazing organization for being able to share that. So that's a bit of what we're doing there.
It's huge. When we drove up there, I was looking at, I go, how many blocks are there? It was like I was looking at 4 or 5 houses, and it was huge. And it was interesting. I remember Clay he asked you what was the goal setting like, and I think you correct me if I'm wrong. You said it's about reflecting on how each week went. I think that was the part that you were talking about when you're setting goals to see exactly how you're tracking each week and seeing what's necessary and what you need to do in order to get there. You see a lot of people, whether they're in the gym, they're training, they're looking for a new career. It's so important to be able to be reflective each week on how you went and what you needed to do. How important is that, Clay? I mean, when you look at your week now, are you much more focused on being more reflective on how you've executed, what you've done, how much awareness you put into the work, whether you're on time or not? We can get into that later.
Never on time.
Never on time.
Put my hand up and say, never on time.
Yeah,
that goes for both of us.
Worse than Fijian and Gold Coast time, that one, I tell you. Anyway.
It was a once-off.
But
for sure. Like, I think business and personal life, like, that's a pretty similar thing. Like, what gets measured improves. And you have to understand the metrics of your life and the metrics of your brand that are going to move the needle to make things better. Yeah. And if you're doing it in your business and you're not doing it with yourself, then you're missing an opportunity. So I think goal setting is something that, as my life has progressed and I've wanted to take on more, understanding what that looks like and then measuring that to keep myself accountable is not only important for me to get better, but also for my happiness. Like, I find my happiness is closely tied to progress. When I feel like my life is progressing, I feel like I'm more fulfilled and I'm a happier person. So that's something that I do quite frequently. I kind of break my life down into different categories and kind of reflect on, like, how am I being a good brother? Am I being a good son? Am I being a good friend? Am I being a good leader? Am I being good to myself and my health? And like trying to balance those different things, I think, is important. And the more that I measure them, the more I find I'm able to kind of structure my week to intentionally fill those different buckets that I need to fill for me anyway. That works. It's the same in a business. Like, what gets measured improves. Like, some of the stuff that we're doing with yourself is understanding what are the key numbers, how do we break those down, how do we measure each week to understand what actions we can take to trigger impact on those numbers to make the brand better. So I think that's something that if you're not measuring what's important in your business, then you should probably look in and start doing that, and you can take that same message to your own personal life and understand what things can you measure to make your life better.
And it doesn't happen just from a click of a finger, right? You have to be somewhat patient in that process when you're making that change that's necessary, and then bringing the right people on board to keep them accountable to create the new change and the new path that you're going in. And how important is patience through that process?
Is that directed at Shan?
Yeah, Shan. Well, you go first. Look, you know what's funny? I think if you're an entrepreneur, everyone's impatient, right?
Oh my gosh.
True or not true?
It is so true.
But how patient do you have to be in the impatience?
That's a great question. I think my worst personality trait is that I'm impatient. And Clay and I have had debates on this, quite a few times, because I love getting things done really fast. And I mean, I think that sometimes that's really great and sometimes it's just a little bit annoying. So I think that, you know, being able to be like excited to see progress is one thing. The other thing about me is that I'm very calm. So like I have this like urgency to like always do things, but at the same time internally like my mood is very consistent, and like I'm always very predictable with my behavior. So like there are very few times where like I just respond or react to something in a way that you wouldn't be able to anticipate. And so that's like, you know, been a bit of a magical combination for me over my career, like being able to have this impatience and being able to have this urgency, which sometimes, you know, I don't really like, but also being able to be really consistent and calm have kind of helped me to be level-headed, but also like make sure that I'm actually getting things done. So
after this, obviously you'd have a few things that you still have to tick off your list, because I was looking at your list yesterday.
Yes.
There was
what were some of
there
the
was more
things I
ticks.
missed?
I don't know. There was a couple. I'm
There's
looking
two
at
things
it.
she missed, right?
There was a cross. There was yeah. You crossed something out, and then you crossed that out, and you ticked that. Yeah, it was yeah. There was a few things there. Are you gonna miss anything out after this meeting? Is there anything that you've crossed out?
You know what? I think, if I'm being honest,
But there was more than 5 things on there, so I'm gonna give you that.
Yeah, there were more than 5 things on there yesterday,
It was
but
about 10.
exactly, like
There's a lot.
I think that it's so fine to like set yourself up to like try and do a lot. And if you can't get through everything, that's okay. There's always tomorrow. But like I prefer to have a day that looks like that than have a day that has 1 or 2 things on it, and then like spend the rest of the day thinking like, oh, what else could I have done? Or like, oh, like I wish I had like made more use of my time. And so yesterday was a bit of a, you're not gonna be happy with this. But yesterday, you know what? I was meant to train, I was meant to go for a walk, and I was meant to train, and I was meant to do a ton of things that I just didn't end up doing, and that was really shit. So today, hopefully, I won't miss out on the things that I was meant to yesterday. I think that's, you know, progress. Continuing to keep the flywheel moving.
Yeah, it's important to be reflective of that. Like, how do you feel when you're not looking after your health?
I feel pretty terrible. I think, like, there's a really
How does it affect your performance?
Oh, like, hugely. Like, there's such a strong correlation between, like, being active and, like, eating well and sleeping well and, like, being able to wake up every day and feel really great. Like, I think I'm naturally, like, a very positive and optimistic person, and sometimes, like, that energy can, like, distract me from, like, how my body's actually feeling. But what ends up happening is, like, I end up, like, feeling really, you know, energetic, and, like, I can go, but then I just feel, like, so tired and I crash. And so, like, being consistent with, like, my routine and, like, being consistent with, you know, my exercise and my food and, you know, all the things that make me feel really good is probably, like, you know, a real key to, like, me being consistently my best self. Yeah.
What about you,
And
Clay?
actually, Clay could probably share, maybe not all the stories, but some of the stories about our trip to the US and how it was, like, just go the whole time. But we still managed to get a lot of good stuff done.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you get your workouts in?
Not as many as I would like, if I'm being honest. Like, I've kind of become accustomed to training like twice a day, like some form of cardio and weights when I'm at home in routine. But the schedule that we had there with like a lot of meetings and kind of travel and stuff made that a little bit difficult for a period, which I think is okay. Like, your life, those periods can kind of shift. But I think having a healthy baseline is like extremely important, especially if you're someone that's responsible for other people's success. Like, if you have a team or if you have people that you're managing or leading and you're not like healthy and clear-minded and like energized, it's impossible to give yourself to others if you haven't given to yourself first. So I think like sleep, what you eat, how you exercise, is like imperative for everyone. And it's something I'm quite passionate about with other founders, is not just like taking a look into their business, but taking a look into them and understanding like how their life is structured and if they're healthy and if they're happy and if they're actually even putting themselves in a position to be a good leader. Because if you're sleep deprived and stressed and filling yourself with bad food, probably going to be hard to kind of be a positive leader.
The interesting thing about that is I feel like the stereotype for founders is to be sleep deprived, stressed, eating bad food, and not having time to like actually exercise.
I'm really anti that. Like, I come across
Well, that was the old way, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think the old view was that like there was a direct correlation between like suffering and progress. So like the more I suffer, the more I'll succeed. And if I had have suffered more, I would have succeeded more. I genuinely don't think that's the case. Like, I think why we're enjoying working together at the moment is we kind of think you can do it in a way that's like positive and fun. You know, there is definitely times where you can be impatient and you need to make quick decisions and you need to, you know, do whatever you need to do in a business. But overall, if it's not meaningful and fun, as Sean says, like, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
You know, there's a million different ways that you can make $1. Try and spend your time doing things that are a little bit more meaningful and things that you enjoy. But I'm super passionate. I've always been involved in health and fitness businesses, so I've been quite exposed to it. I think you're a pretty good example of that too, right? You've made a lot of changes in your personal life the last kind of, 24, 36 months, and you're a better leader and your business is performing better than ever.
What happens is when you start looking after your health, you have much greater output. And then, like, if you can take feedback on faster, you can pivot faster. There's so many things you can do. But not only that, when you do look after your health, your bandwidth of what you can do increases. So this is the question I was going to ask next was, how important is it to be around people that you're trying to be like, whether it be in health, whether it be in business, whether it be in anything that you're trying to get better at? Like, what kind of vibration, what kind of level do you have to be at with other people around you? And how important is it? How important is it?
I hate like the cliche like quotes. I really don't. I don't like them. But one of them that I do agree with is like, you are kind of the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most of your time with. If you surround yourself with the right people that have the right habits, like, you have no choice, but like, they'll set the standard that you need to meet. Whereas if you're trying to set a great standard for yourself, but that's not being enforced by the people around you, you won't rise to the level of your ambition. You'll fall to the level of your systems and your environment. So I think like putting yourself around good people that really challenge you, that you can learn from, is the best way for you to ensure progress. If you're in a really terrible environment, but you're super ambitious, it can be quite hard for you to kind of perform at the level that you want to.
What about you, Sean?
I really agree with that. And I think that we often just stumble into like friendships, or we stumble into relationships, and fortunately or unfortunately, like, family's there regardless. But I think that like we need to be really intentional with how we spend our time. And so if you can identify like the traits that you want to embody yourself, and if you can be intentional with spending time with people who embody those already, whether it's like things that help you progress in your career or things that just help you be the best version of yourself and be a better human, I think that that's really important. So like, I think, taking a moment to like actually think about, who do I want to be, and who do I know that like is doing or is the person that I want to be in different ways, is probably one of the most powerful things you can do. We talked about like goal setting and like being accountable and checking in on your goals regularly and all of that stuff, like you would in a business. I think that level of taking that like level of like being deliberate, but with your own development, and like constructing an environment for yourself that's conducive to where you want to be in your life is so important. And we don't do it. Like, when was the last time you sat down and thought like, who do I want to be in a year or 2 years or 3 years, and like, who are my influences around me? I mean, until I realized this, I'd never done that.
It's so important, right?
Yeah.
It's like anything. Like if you want to be good at boxing, if you want to be good at a better physique, you got to try and look at who's a level above. How can I get coached by them to go to that next level? It matters so much in order to get to the level that you require. Like you're never gonna listen to the person next door that has never built a house and you want to build a house, right? You're gonna go to the person that's the expert in that area. And I always say to people, if you want to go to that next level, you got to level up on who you can surround yourself with. But once you do that and you go to that level, ask yourself the question, what have you got to give? Because these people aren't just going to allow people that are dragging the chain.
Yeah. And I think that part around, what value do you add to other people is so important. But beyond it just being transactional, like, how do you make sure that every day you wake up and wherever you are in your life and on your journey, you can give the world and the people around you the best version of yourself? I think that's really important. Like, someone might be better at you at a specific skill, or, might be more experienced at real estate, or might be more experienced at like maths or whatever it is that you want to be good at. And that's okay. But if you can show up to every like relationship or interaction or meeting or whatever it is and be really committed to yourself to give it everything that you can, I think that like that psyche around like actually like taking the opportunity to push yourself and give it your all is actually what adds value to others. Like, it's like I could sit here and not know anything about a topic, but I would be curious enough to ask the questions that might feel like dumb questions, or I'd be curious enough to actually like challenge you on something. We've had lots of conversations where we challenge each other.
Look, you know what was great about it? But we come from two different worlds, right?
Yeah.
Two different opinions, but we had a discussion. You weren't right, I wasn't right. We were just having a discussion about two different views.
Exactly. And that's like a great example where like, I felt like you added value to my world by sharing your viewpoint with me, and hopefully in some weird way, shape, or form, I did the same. And that
No,
wasn't
100%
about
you did.
you know
You did.
You know, I wasn't an expert. I wasn't
Yeah.
an expert in any of those conversations, but in that interaction, like, you added value to me and I added value to you. And I think that's how you make sure that when you're surrounding yourself with the right people, you're giving value to people too. You're just committed to being able to be present and, like, you know, really engage with whatever you're talking about. And, like, you know, give every conversation everything you have.
So, like on this podcast, obviously, I've interviewed a lot of people that have been obviously extremely successful in sport or in business, right? And I've asked, you know, very similar questions to so many different people. And one thing that what I want people to realize is this: I never got given anything special. I was just an average person, right? You know, good family, supportive family. You were the same, and you were the same. It wasn't like we came from money. We didn't come from money. And a lot of people will look at us and go, oh, they were lucky. I don't think there's... Luck only comes to those that are prepared to put in the work, right? And that's what I want people to understand, because we're getting close towards the end of this podcast, and I'm sure we're going to do a lot more of these. But one thing I want people to understand is this. When people look at Sharndré, she wasn't given a silver spoon with all this money to go out and do what you know, to build a business, fail as much as you want, and you're going to have the business valued at this much, and you're going to be in the top 30 in the world, in Asia Pacific, right? People really have to understand that, right? Because they'll look at not the finished product, the 20-year-old Shan going, she had it easy. It couldn't be any further from the truth, right?
I think what you're saying is, so there's so much truth in that. Like, success is never something that you just wake up with one day. Like, even like right now, sitting here with you both, I feel like if you ask me if I feel like I'm proud of what I've achieved, yes. But if you ask me if I feel like I'm like reached my success, I'd say no. Like, you have to be committed to this journey every single day. And I think that nothing that's worthwhile ever comes easily. So you have to be willing to put in the work. Yes, I think that in my journey, like, being able to meet the right people at the right time was helpful, and like there probably was a bit of luck in that. But if I wasn't open to actually putting in the hard work, and if I wasn't open to learning, and if I wasn't open to, you know, like, developing myself, I wouldn't have even seen it as luck. I wouldn't have seen the opportunity at all. And so I think having the, like, awareness to do that is really important, and also the confidence to be able to say, I'm going to try.
What about for you, Clay? Like, it wasn't just given to you. You had to put yourself in the right position.
I would say that I was very lucky. We might not have had some things, but I was raised in a family with, like, unconditional love.
Yes.
So for me, I'll, like, always
I
be
think
so
we can all
grateful
attest
over
to
that.
that,
And
right? I think we all
I
had
think that's
that.
like a real powerful driver for us to become who we became, because we wanted to be providers and to, like, be the versions of ourselves that our parents, like, instilled that self-belief and love in. So, like, that was really powerful, and I think that's something I'm super grateful for. But in terms of resource, it was very much, you know, like, starting my life from, like, a fresh slate and being cool. This is who I am. These are the qualities I have. This is how much I believe I can go on and do in the world. Let's go and figure it out, you know, which, again, I wouldn't change that.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of think it's amazing to start from that platform and kind of and build out your journey as you go.
I mean, look, before this podcast, we were sitting in here and we were having a discussion, and I took a lot away from both of you. You know, Shan was asking me a lot of great questions, and it made me really think a lot more and with a lot more depth. And at that point, I was going, there's so much more that you can become and you can give, and you can go to that next level. It doesn't matter what age you are, and there's no finish line of this. As long as you can be around the right people and believe in yourself consistently, even on I think the biggest thing that individuals need to do is you have to believe in yourself in the toughest days, when it gets really hard, when you go, this feels like a brick wall or a dead end here, and this is where you got to really push hard and you know, look at the resilience that you've had previous to this to go to that next level. And the biggest thing that I try and do with the podcast is where people can go, I like what Shan said, I like what Clay, I mean, heaps of people watch your videos and loved all your videos, every single video that we've done. So, but it matters. Like, you know, I was with Shan, and you asked me what did they like seeing. It was when they see Nelson Mandela that made the difference to ask the question. So you don't even know which video is going to pop, where they're going to ask the question. Like, who's that girl? What has she done? And I think people want to believe that they can make it, and they want that other person to be relatable to them so they can believe the story that you know.
If they did it, then I can do it too.
That's the thing, right? That's the thing. Like, everyone's done it before you as well,
Yeah.
and everyone's going to do it after you.
Yeah.
It's not going to change. That process isn't going to change. And I find that when I hit a goal and I create more value in people's lives, I feel better about myself. I can go to bed, sleep. I've done everything that I could possibly do today, and I'm going to make tomorrow better.
I love that.
Agree.
Thanks, guys, for this great discussion, this round
you.
table. If there was one more person there, Kenny, could have been, one more there. Could have been right around the table. But I just want to thank you guys, because there's so many takeaways that people can take. And not only that, this is what I want as well, before we finish. Where can people find you? Because you guys are doing huge things. And people are going to ask, like, what do they do? Like, you just help businesses.
Yeah.
You just help businesses scale.
Sean's been really great. She started last week sharing more of her journey on socials.
But Sean, like, if someone wanted to reach out to you, obviously, it's not easy to get access to great people, but they might want your services, like, right?
Yeah,
and obviously you do the One Life. Clay, you consult to me, you help my business. So people can find you on what platform?
You can find me on Instagram. I'm probably tagged in this video, but it's just my name, Clayton Musumeci.
Yeah.
And Sean. I'm going to put it out there on the record because I've been pretty slack, haven't I?
You have.
Yes.
But
I'm going to start
That's
to
a red
share.
card.
I'm going to
It's a
start to
journey.
send more
Wait a
content.
second.
It's okay.
I'm going to start to share
Wait
more
a second,
content.
Sean. I'm going to get a red card.
Cut it, Kenny.
I don't have my pencil. You're lucky. You would have been reported. You came late. You haven't put yourself out there.
That's true.
This is it. This is the... We'll see at the judiciary.
But you can find Sean on Instagram now too. So
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Or
Thanks,
on
guys.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn? Which one's your favorite? Which one's your favorite?
Which one's my favorite? Oh, probably Instagram.
Instagram, yeah.
Actually, we've met some really interesting people over the last
Yeah.
week through Instagram.
Yeah.
that's true.
Really cool businesses asking good questions. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.
Cool.
Hopefully there's no more red cards this season, but
Not if Clay's back.
mate, for late, yeah. I mean, people have asked, so the Mets, you're being a bit harsh. Maybe a yellow card first. I said, man, I'm a tough referee. Well, you want an easy referee? Well, I'm not the guy you're looking for.
All
Thanks again, huh?
Amazing. Thanks
Have
for
a
having
good
us.
one. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.